if I can set a good example by coming in under 5 minutes.
Thanks, you had cables as well.
Yeah.
Thanks. Shouldn't be that colour. I haven't heard that much lately yet. Okay, I want to talk about ANT, an audio news trainer, which is some research I'm carrying out with Elena in our Yadis research group, also in collaboration with Agnes Hume at the OU. And we started off by observing, at least in Spain, the way that people are actually using mobile devices. It's very easy to get on the bus, get on the underground. If you stop and look around, the majority of people are playing around on their on their mobile devices. So we started to think, how could we harness this potential for improving some kind of language competence? So we decided to work on oral and written competencies using the open vocabulary, and then we started to think, how could we actually make something that would still be interesting to people 1 week, 1 month, 1 year down the line? Because there's hundreds of apps on the iTunes and Google Play sites, but most of them are not being used by practically anybody. So we decided that the news domain seemed to be a fairly popular starting point for that, and we could actually try and encourage people, because people actually like to stay up to date on the international news. I know lots of people have CNN or the BBC on while they're cooking breakfast or washing their dishes, so why not do it as they're moving around in the streets? So the idea is actually to make this easier for them by actually categorising the different podcasts in 3 different levels using the traffic light system, green, yellow and red. And then by getting them to actually listen to this, we can get them to answer some simple questions about the conditions in which they're listening to this information, which gets logged on our server, and also what they think they've understood from that. And then the idea is that once they've actually got to that stage, what they think they've understood gets posted on the app page on Facebook. And then we move on to a second level of activity, because we're not thinking that the mobile device is necessarily the right tool for all the activity. So that once you get onto that, they can then move over to the Facebook stage and the social media stage, which I'll talk about in the future. For anybody who's actually interested in technology, after having burnt my fingers somewhat building for iOS and using Java for Android, I've actually moved to a multi-platform design combining HTML5, etc., and using the Intel XDK development toolkit, which I would highly recommend to you, because it's easy to use and you can deploy it across at least half a dozen platforms. Very nice and free. Okay, what was that? The XDK. If you go to Google, put Intel space XDK toolkit, 3 words, you'll find it. It's a piece of cake to use. I mean, you have to know a little bit of HTML5 and CSS, but it's really very easy. Okay. We did not want to develop any kind of app using an ad hoc methodology, so thanks to the collaboration with Agnes, we decided to use her 2012 conceptual model framework. She structures this very much in terms of a series of questions that any kind of app developer should be asking in terms of time, place, and a kind of activity. Now, some of these questions we're asking ourselves a priori before building the app, but others, which we think are perhaps a little difficult to answer, we include them as part of the information we can get out of the questions we ask the students. So then we hope to be able to help her to refine this framework as we get more data on what we're actually doing. So you've got some screens here which you may or may not be able to see. The idea is that people log on at the moment, have access to information about what they're going to do. As I said before, the news is put into 3 different categories. The advantage of this is that this is automatically updated as new news stories come along, so therefore it's always current for the people that are using it. And because obviously if you come along perhaps a couple of months after the act's been released, then that particular news story might or might not have been discussed to death in the social media. So you need something fresh. But that's the advantage with the news. The reason it's actually protected with a login and password is because we're skimming off the BBC, CNN, etc. websites for their podcast, which of course is not exactly ethically recommendable. So it's research, you understand. Okay, so once you pick this story, then you get to listen to it. You get a series of questions. 1 minute. Okay, I'm finishing. Okay, then you come on to the Facebook. So automatically, the idea is, it's not fully implemented at the moment, is that the app puts the first point on. So then as you browse other stories that other people have already graded, you can either say, I like it or I don't like it. And then the other idea is you move into curation mode. So then you leave your mobile device alone, you use a web browser, you start to find supporting information on social media sites, and use that, if you like, to construct a case for what you think you've understood on the app. Okay, pedagogic advantages. What do you think of the sequence of the podcasts are actually, in terms of difficulties, useful for the students, because that's not always easy to do. The structure of the interface helps self-regulation, metacognition, etc. And also the way that we enable students to collaborate may be useful in terms of social learning and reinforcing their active participation. And we're about to start a 6-month sabbatical in the OEU in September, working with actors. So we hope we can actually work this particular app out and get some information.